I was sitting on my couch, folding towels, humming quietly, when the text came in. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I even reread it twice before I let myself fully believe the words on the screen. "Hey Lydia, we need to talk. The photographer has a specific vision, and the aesthetic is really important to me. I hope you understand, but it's probably best if you don't attend the ceremony. It's nothing personal, but the venue's very minimal, very modern beach. And your look might not really fit. Hope you're not offended." That was it. No love you, no we'll miss you, not even a phone call. Just a cold little message, straight from my son's 28-year-old fiancée, Chloe. For a second, I sat frozen. I actually laughed out loud, like she was joking. But the longer I stared at that screen, the heavier my chest felt. My fingers hovered over the reply box, unsure if I should respond with confusion or fury. Instead, I did what any mother would do. I called my son. Matt picked up immediately, cheerful. "Hey Mom, what's up?" The moment I mentioned the message, his tone changed. He didn't sound surprised, just defensive. "Look, Chloe's under a lot of pressure. The wedding's been really stressful. She didn't mean it like that." I asked him flat out. "So you agree with her?" There was a pause, long enough to tell me everything I needed. Then, quietly, he said, "It's her big day, Mom. She just wants everything to feel perfect. I told her you'd understand." I told him I did. I told him it was fine. I even said I'd still help coordinate the cake delivery and double-check the florist for them, just like I'd promised. I smiled through my teeth and said, "Whatever helps make your day special." But inside, something broke. And I'm not talking about a little heartbreak or a few tears. I'm talking about the sharp, sinking realization that the child you raised for 31 years, the one you stayed up nursing through fevers, helped through every broken bone and breakup, could be swayed by a woman he'd only known for 2 years, just because she had a certain vision. I wasn't hurt. I was livid. But I knew better than to show it. Not yet. I spent the rest of that night cleaning the kitchen in total silence, scrubbing the counters like I could erase the feeling crawling up my spine. They were getting married. In Tulum, a beachfront resort ceremony I had helped fund. Not just a little contribution, either. I'd put down the initial deposit on the resort block, paid for half the flowers, and even advanced $2,500 for the photographer Chloe insisted on. Her aesthetics, everything, Matt had said. She's trying to launch a lifestyle page after the wedding. Now here I was, not beautiful enough to stand behind them in their precious photos. If you're enjoying the story so far, I've got a quick request. If you've ever experienced something similar, I'd genuinely love to hear about it. Drop it in the comments. And if you haven't already, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. Sharing this video with your friends and family would mean even more. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed replaying every moment of the last year. Every passive-aggressive comment from Chloe. Every moment Matt shrugged and said, "She's just being honest. Maybe I should have seen this coming. Maybe I just didn't want to believe my only child could turn out like this." The next morning, I poured myself coffee, sat down with my notebook, and made a quiet decision. If they were treating me like the help, then I'd stop playing the doting mother. I'd show them what silence felt like. But before I could even let that plan settle, a call came in. From the resort coordinator. "Hi, Lydia," she chirped. "I just wanted to confirm the second guest profile for the honeymoon villa booking. There were some issues with the payment card. Should we reattempt on the same card ending in 9921? My blood went cold. That was my card. The same card I had used to pay for Matt's car repairs last year. A card he swore he destroyed afterward. I asked for the name on the booking. She said it was Matthew Adams, and that the companion traveler was listed as Chloe. I asked for the total, $8,462. My stomach flipped. "Please don't process anything else," I told her. "I'll call back soon." Then I hung up, opened my bank app, and saw it. 3 pending charges, all from the Tulum resort, all within the last 2 weeks. Flights, spa packages, yacht dinner, all on me. No one had asked. No one had warned. They just assumed I'd fund their honeymoon like I was some corporate sponsor. At that moment, I stopped feeling hurt. I felt clear in a way I hadn't felt in years. I called the bank, canceled the card, canceled the payments, then I called the resort back. Yes, I said. I'd like to rebook the same honeymoon. Sweet. Just under my own name. Solo traveler. Add the spa and yacht package. And please, remove Matthew Adams and Chloe from any associated bookings. The girl on the phone paused. Do you want us to notify them? I smiled. No, thank you. I'll handle that myself. Then I hung up, pulled out my passport, and began packing. No rage, no tears. Just quiet, careful satisfaction. Let them find out the hard way. Let them call the resort and find their perfect little post-wedding escape vanished. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at their wedding. I was going to disappear and take their dream vacation with me. The morning I boarded the plane to Tulum, I left a handwritten note on my kitchen counter, just in case Matt or Chloe bothered stopping by. It simply read, "Thanks for everything. I'll be out of town for a bit. Don't wait up." I took my time at the airport, got there early, breezed through security, and treated myself to an overpriced cappuccino and a glossy travel magazine. My seat was window side, first class, courtesy of the same woman Chloe thought wasn't aesthetic enough to attend her wedding. The resort greeted me like royalty. Ocean breeze, welcome drink, someone carrying my luggage to the room. And the room, my God, the room. A private villa with its own plunge pool, a marble tub, and an ocean view that looked like a movie set. I walked barefoot across the cool stone floor, laughing softly to myself. I hadn't felt this calm in years. No tutoring sessions, no grocery lists, no cleaning up after anyone. Just me, my sandals, and 6 days of luxury. On the second night, I treated myself to the spa package they'd pre-booked. Deep tissue massage, facial, and something called a seaweed wrap. I emerged glowing, looser, smiling for the first time in weeks. That night, I posted a picture. Not to be petty. At least, that's what I told myself. It was just a candid selfie by the infinity. Pool, cocktail in hand, ocean behind me. The caption was simple. Turns out, wrinkles look just fine in paradise. It exploded. A few of my friends commented first, laughing emojis, heart eyes, "You go, girl!" But within hours, extended family started chiming in. "Wait, aren't Matt and Chloe in Tulum for their honeymoon?" someone asked. "Didn't Lydia fund most of the wedding?" another cousin replied. I didn't say a word. I just liked the comments and let the conversation do its thing. By the time I woke up the next morning, Chloe had wiped half her Instagram feed. And then the phone calls started. First Matt. I didn't answer. Then 3 back-to-back calls from an unknown number, probably Chloe's burner. I let them go to voicemail. On the third day, the resort manager gently knocked on my villa door. "Miss Lydia, sorry to disturb you," she said nervously. "But there's a man and woman at the front desk demanding access to your room. They claim there's been a mistake." I sipped my drink and asked, "Are they registered guests?" She shook her head. "No, ma'am. Their names aren't on any booking now. We canceled their registration last week." I smiled. Then, "Please kindly ask them to leave the premises. If they return, notify security." She nodded and walked off. That should have been the end of it, but Matt doesn't let go that easily. That night, he called again. This time I picked up. I was calm, breezy. "Hi, honey. How's married life?" He didn't even say hello. He went straight into yelling. "How could you do this to us? We showed up at the resort and they told us the room was gone. You embarrassed Chloe in front of the whole front desk." I let him rant for a full minute before I interrupted. "Did you think I wouldn't find out you used my card?" That shut him up. Silence. Then a week. "We thought you wouldn't notice. You weren't even using that account anymore. Chloe found it in your drawer when she borrowed your laptop. We just needed it to cover the trip until the wedding gifts came in." My jaw tightened. "That was identity theft, Matt. You used my name, my credit, my money, and then Chloe told me not to show up to your wedding because my face didn't match her aesthetic? You think I'd roll over for that?" He tried to backpedal. "It wasn't like that. Chloe was just under pressure. She thought maybe we'd do 2 ceremonies, one private, one bigger later with more people. You were always going to be part of it." I laughed bitterly. "You're telling me I imagined that message? She was just venting. It wasn't supposed to come off that way." I said nothing. Let the silence stretch. Let him feel it. Then I said, "Matt, you and Chloe played a game you weren't ready for. You tried to exclude me from my own son's wedding while using my money to fund your luxury getaway. You thought I wouldn't do anything. We were going to pay you back, he blurted out. We weren't trying to scam you. Then why hide it? Why not ask? He hesitated, and when he spoke again, his voice was small. We didn't think you'd say yes. And there it was, the truth. They didn't respect me enough to include me, but they felt entitled enough to steal from me. I ended the call with a simple, "Enjoy your marriage. I'll be enjoying the honeymoon." Then I blocked his number. I stayed 4 more days, every one of them glorious. I met a retired architect from Montreal, drank mango margaritas with a pair of sisters from Detroit, even joined a yoga class. By the sea, I was treated like someone who mattered, who deserved beauty. On the last night, the resort hosted a bonfire dinner on the beach. I wore a white sundress, the same one I'd planned to wear to the wedding, and I danced. Not well, but happily. I felt alive, not like someone's mother or a forgotten RSVP. Just a woman who had finally decided to stop apologizing for existing. The next morning, as I checked out, the concierge handed me a note. "From the couple who visited earlier," he said awkwardly. I opened it. It was scribbled on the back of a receipt. "Hope you're happy. You made Chloe cry in front of strangers. You ruined everything." No signature, just anger, just projection. I folded it neatly, tossed it in the trash, and wheeled my suitcase out to the car. Back home, my inbox was flooded with messages from extended family. Some confused, some angry, some cheering me on. But one thing was clear. The silence was gone. Everyone now knew how Matt and Chloe had treated me. I hadn't planned to go public. But the story was out and people were talking. And that's when the next surprise hit. A call came in from the same bank whose card had been used. "Mrs. Bennett," the woman said, "we're following up on the fraud report you filed. After reviewing the transactions and identifying the unauthorized users, we've escalated this case. We'll need you to confirm whether you'd like to press formal charges against the users of the account. If so, we can begin the legal process this week." I sat there, stunned. My hands didn't shake, my heart didn't race. Just a calm question echoed through me. How far am I willing to take this? Because suddenly, this wasn't just about a canceled honeymoon. It was about respect, about boundaries, about a son who didn't think twice before betraying his own mother, and a woman who looked me in the face and said, "Don't come. Your wrinkles will ruin the photos." That's when I asked the bank lady to hold. I walked to my bedroom, pulled open my drawer, and found a neatly folded envelope marked "Prenup Clause, Matt and Chloe." I had paid for the lawyer. I had insisted on the clause that stated if financial misconduct occurred within 30 days of marriage, all wedding gifts and shared assets could be reclaimed. Chloe had laughed at the time, said it was so outdated, but she signed it, and I kept the copy. I returned to the phone and said, "Yes, I'd like to move forward with charges, and I have supporting documents to add." The woman's voice was calm. "Understood. I'll file the necessary paperwork today." When I hung up, I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. I just sat down with my tea and whispered one sentence into the empty kitchen. "Let's see how aesthetic court looks." 3 days after I returned from Mexico, I was sitting in my kitchen, flipping through the resort's printed spa menu, sipping pineapple tea, when my neighbor Karen knocked on the door, holding up her phone like she'd found a murder weapon. "Lydia," she whispered, "have you seen what's happening online?" I took her phone, and there it was. Someone had screenshotted my poolside post and added a caption, "Bride bans groom's mother from wedding because her wrinkles ruin the aesthetic. So the mom cancels their honeymoon and takes the trip herself." It had racked up over 80,000 likes overnight. Comments flooded in. Some were angry, some cheering, some just stunned that anyone could be that cruel to their own mother. I hadn't posted the story myself. It was Chloe's cousin, the same one I helped arrange transportation for, who apparently shared it out of guilt. She didn't name me or them directly, but anyone who knew the wedding could piece it together. And people did. The thread spread across platforms. Commenters dug up Matt and Chloe's wedding registry, tagged their wedding photographer, even located their now-deleted honeymoon post where they'd originally bragged about the first-class dream week coming soon. Chloe, Tried to do damage control, changing her handle, locking her account, but it was too late. The hashtags kept climbing. My name was never in the post, but extended family started calling non-stop. "Lydia, was that about you?" one aunt asked. "Lydia, I saw that post. Tell me it's not true," another whispered, as if the shame belonged to me. But the most satisfying part? The phone call from the actual photographer, the one I'd prepaid for the wedding. He sounded flustered. "Mrs. Bennett, I just wanted to confirm, do you still want to proceed with the refund request? I was contacted by the bride's friend saying you've pulled all payments." I smiled into the phone. "Yes, I'd like a full refund. The client breached the agreement by removing family members from the session without notice." He hesitated. "She said you wouldn't mind." "I mind," I said simply, "and I'd like that payment returned. Full amount." He agreed. That same afternoon, the resort refunded my canceled honeymoon charges. Everything I'd taken back was now legally and financially mine, but I didn't stop there, because there was something deeper gnawing at me, something I couldn't quite explain. I started going through my old emails, receipts, anything from the last 10 months. Chloe had handled most of the vendor coordination. She'd insisted it was her zone of genius. But the more I looked, the more I realized how much of my money had disappeared in quiet, subtle thefts, deposits, flowers, cake tastings I was never invited to, and even a tuxedo rental I never saw. One invoice had my address on it, but her email. Another was billed to my PayPal without any notification. My total contributions? Nearly $12,000. And not once had either of them offered to reimburse me. They'd just thanked me with fake smiles, handed me tasks like I was their free assistant, then locked me out of the most important day of their lives. So I did the only thing left to do. I made an appointment with a lawyer. We reviewed every charge, every email, and most importantly, the prenup. He read it 3 times before looking up at me with a slow, impressed nod. "You're covered," he said. "If they committed financial misconduct before the honeymoon phase ended, and if the funds were used deceptively without consent, this agreement is legally enforceable. You can demand repayment, even revoke gift money, and you may be entitled to damages." I exhaled slowly. "And if they push back? Then we escalate." I signed the forms that day. That night I posted a new photo. Nothing dramatic, just me holding up a cocktail in front of a slideshow of my beach trip on my living room TV. The caption was simple: "Best trip I never planned." It went viral within hours. This time, the comments were harsher. Strangers calling Chloe a narcissist, others praising me, some calling for the couple to apologize publicly. Still, I said nothing. I wasn't chasing clout. I was laying a paper trail, because while the internet exploded, I knew the real fire hadn't started yet. That came 2 days later, when Matt and Chloe showed up at my front door. I knew they'd come eventually. I just didn't expect them to come this fast or this desperate. Chloe was wearing oversized sunglasses, mascara smudged down her cheeks, and Matt looked like he hadn't slept in days. They didn't knock. They pounded. I opened the door calmly, cup of tea still in hand, and just stared at them. "We need to talk," Matt said, eyes bloodshot. Chloe started to cry. "You humiliated me," she hissed. "I can't even show my face at work." I looked at her blankly. "Then maybe you shouldn't have stolen my money." "It wasn't stealing," she snapped. "It was a misunderstanding." "Then you won't mind if I press charges," I replied. Matt stepped between us. "Mom, come on. You're taking this too far. You've already ruined our reputation. Can't you just let it go?" I tilted my head. "So when you excluded me, that was fine. But now that the consequences are public, it's too far?" He looked cornered. "We were going to pay you back." I reached behind the door, pulled out a folder, and handed it to him. "Here's the total amount, with dates, receipts, and transaction IDs. I expect it returned in full." He flipped through it and paled. 12 grand, Chloe gasped. "She's bluffing," Matt muttered. "No, I'm not," I said. "And I'm also not bluffing about the prenup, Clause 7B, any acts of financial misconduct within 30 days of marriage grant the contributing party legal rights to recover funds and rescind any unfulfilled support agreements." Chloe went pale. You wouldn't..." It's already in motion, I replied. And the legal notice is being mailed to your apartment tomorrow. You have 72 hours to pay me back before we move forward with discovery. Matt stared at me, like he didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he thought I'd always be the mom who'd quietly forgive anything, bake cookies after every betrayal. Not anymore. You've changed, he said bitterly. No, I said softly. I just finally stopped pretending I was okay with being used. Chloe's voice turned shrill. Do you realize what this is doing to our marriage? You did that yourselves, I said. I'm just cleaning up the mess. They left in silence. But the next day, something happened that made all of it feel small by comparison. A new email popped into my inbox. Subject line, about Chloe. You should know this. And when I opened it, my heart dropped. It was from someone named Ava, Chloe's co-worker. She had screenshots, messages, photos, a digital trail that made my skin crawl. Chloe hadn't just used me. She hadn't just insulted me. She had never even loved Matt in the first place. She'd been bragging to a guy from her office about milking the mom for honeymoon perks, and that Matt was just good on paper. She even admitted she was still talking to the other guy right up until the wedding. Ava said she'd stayed quiet, but after seeing my viral post, she couldn't hold it in anymore. And suddenly, I wasn't just holding receipts, I was holding a bomb. One I planned to drop in the most public way possible. Because now, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about truth. And there was no way I was letting that truth rot in my inbox. Not after everything I'd endured. Not after what I was about to do next. They came back exactly 71 hours later, just before the legal deadline hit, and this time they didn't knock. They barged in like they still lived here, like this was some family misunderstanding, and I was going to bake them a pie and forgive it all away, but I was ready for them. I had every document printed, time-stamped, annotated, and stacked neatly on my dining table next to my phone, which was already recording. Chloe entered first, all crocodile tears and fake trembling lips, clutching Matt's arm like she'd just walked through war, her mascara smudged in a way that looked more like she applied it that way for effect than from actual crying. "Lydia," she gasped, "please, we can't go through with this. Lawyers, court, it's tearing us apart. I just want things back the way they were." She walked toward me like we were close, like we were ever anything more than barely. Civil, but I didn't move an inch. Matt followed, his jaw tight, eyes darting to the stack of papers. "Mom, you can't be serious about this. You're really going to drag us to court over a few receipts?" I didn't answer. I let the silence do the heavy lifting. Finally, I reached into the folder, pulled out the final page, my lawyer's official demand for restitution and breach of prenup conditions, and placed it squarely in front of them. 3 hours left, I said calmly, or the claim gets filed with the county clerk tomorrow morning. Chloe dropped the act instantly. "You cold-hearted hag," she snapped, and just like that, the mask slipped. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to Matt's career? His reputation?" I looked at Matt, who was staring at the floor, not saying a word, and I realized right then he wasn't even angry. He was scared. Not of me, of what else might come out. So I leaned forward and said softly, "That's funny, Chloe. You didn't seem too concerned about his reputation when you were sending shirtless photos to Zach from work 2 weeks before the wedding." Her face drained like a power outage. I had her full attention now. "You think I wouldn't find out?" I said. "You think Ava wouldn't reach out? You think someone who watched you lie, cheat, and then steal wouldn't eventually crack under the weight of their own conscience?" Matt finally looked up. "What is she talking about?" Chloe started to stammer, but I cut her off. "You want to see them?" I asked, pulling out the printouts of Chloe's text exchange with the other man. The flirty messages, the dinner photos, the one where she called Matt safe but boring. I dropped them on the table, and for the first time since this all began, Matt looked like the betrayal finally hit him. He grabbed the papers, scanned them, and then looked at Chloe like he'd never seen her before. "You told me you loved me," he said, voice cracking, and Chloe, ever the actress, clutched his arm again and whispered, "Baby, it didn't mean anything. It was before we were married. It was just a dumb mistake." But Matt was backing away, his face twisted in shock, and I watched the entire thing unfold like a slow-motion car crash. Chloe spun back toward me, desperate now, eyes wild. "You think you won?" she hissed. "You ruined your own family, Lydia. You humiliated your son, tanked your grandchild's future, and for what? A few likes online and a petty vacation?" I stood up then, calm but unshakable. "I gave you both every chance to do the right thing. I gave you time, Grace, even a warning. You made your choices. Now you can live with them." And then, as if the universe was scripting the scene for me, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find my sister Janine, who I had texted earlier, standing there with 3 of our relatives behind her, cousins, an aunt, and Janine's teenage daughter. They'd seen the online mess and had come to drop off something and check on me. But when they saw Matt and Chloe standing there mid-drama, Janine froze. "What's going on?" she asked, and I turned to her and said, "They came to negotiate," in a voice so flat it could cut glass. "But unfortunately, the negotiation window has closed." Chloe looked horrified that people were witnessing this. Matt looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. Janine walked in, looked at the documents, and her eyes widened. "This is real," she muttered, glancing between us. Chloe spun on her heel. "You invited an audience? This is sick, Lydia. You're making a circus of our private issues." I laughed, not kindly. "You made it public the moment you sent that text banning me from your wedding for having wrinkles. You made it public the second you used my money behind my back and called it aesthetic control. Now you don't get to decide when the curtain falls." Chloe lunged for the documents, like tearing them would erase them from existence. But Janine intercepted her, stepping between us with a firm, "Don't even think about it." Matt stood there, eyes hollow. "I just wanted a peaceful marriage," he said quietly. "I didn't want all this." I walked over to him, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "Then you should have married someone who didn't treat your mother like an ATM and a prop to be photoshopped out." He didn't answer, just stared at the floor again. Chloe turned on him, voice shrill now. "Are you seriously going to just let her do this to us? Are you going to let your own mother drag us through court like criminals?" And Matt, to my absolute shock, said, "Maybe we are." Chloe slapped his arm so hard the sound cracked. "You pathetic coward," she hissed. "I should have never married you." And there it was, finally, the truth from her lips, in front of everyone. Janine raised her eyebrows. The cousins were dead silent. The air in the room had turned into steel. I didn't say another word. I didn't have to. Chloe stormed out first, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled. Matt followed a few seconds later, but not before turning back to look at me. A flicker of something, shame, maybe, or regret, in his face. "You didn't have to do it like this," he said. I didn't respond. Because yes, I did. They had. Every chance to apologize, to pay it back, to own it. Instead, they tried to spin it, to manipulate, to guilt trip. Now it was mine to resolve, and I would resolve it fully, cleanly, and legally. When they were gone, Janine looked at me and said, "Lydia, you're a damn hurricane." I smiled. "That's what happens when people try to drown you and forget you can swim." But I wasn't finished, because the next morning my lawyer called. "Lydia," he said, "I think you'll want to see this. We've just uncovered new activity. Matt tried to move your previous tutoring payments into a hidden account to prevent recovery." I froze. "What do you mean?" "He already received part of your refund through the photographer, and he's trying to claim it as income for Chloe's business, not as repayment. It's technically fraud." My breath slowed. "What are my options?" "We escalate," he said. "This isn't just civil anymore. This could go criminal." And just like that, the game changed again. I wasn't just protecting my money anymore. I was about to protect the truth in a courtroom. The moment my lawyer sent me the final report confirming that Matt had tried to redirect the refunded wedding vendor money into a fake account labeled Chloe Designs, I knew I wasn't dealing with desperation anymore. I was dealing with calculated theft. He hadn't just panicked and made a few dumb choices under pressure. He knew exactly what he was doing. He had tried to hide funds that belonged to me under a false business listing that Chloe created right after the wedding, one with no tax, ID, and no products. I asked the lawyer if it counted as fraud, and he didn't hesitate. Yes, And if we present this to the court, we're not just talking repayment anymore. They could both face criminal charges. I hung up, sat with the silence for a moment, and then opened the email from Ava again, the one Chloe's coworker had sent me, full of screenshots, voice memos, and one short video clip that made my stomach twist. It was Chloe at a bridal brunch, a glass of champagne in hand, giggling with her friends. Honestly, once the ring's on and the trip's booked, I don't really care what the mother-in-law thinks. Her money got us to Mexico. After that, we ghost her. The table laughed. Chloe smirked. It's called Modern Boundaries. I watched the clip 3 times. Then I downloaded it. Then I uploaded it to a private file server my lawyer could use in court. But I wasn't satisfied with a courtroom. I wanted the truth out where it couldn't be twisted. So I printed everything, the fraudulent account activity, the messages, the video transcript, and I took it to the one place where silence always breaks, the family reunion. It was Matt's dad's side, and they invited me out of pity, assuming I wouldn't show. But I RSVP'd yes, packed a small envelope, and walked in wearing the same white sundress Chloe had claimed was too plain for her wedding theme. They were all there, dozens of them, cousins, in-laws, aunts, and of course, Matt and Chloe, sitting at a table like nothing had happened. Some people stared when I walked in. Others just nodded politely. Chloe stiffened, whispering something to Matt, who turned and smiled at me with that pathetic grin he always wore when he thought charm could fix everything. I didn't smile back. I walked straight to the head table, tapped a spoon to my glass, and said, "Sorry to interrupt. I just want to thank everyone for the invitation. And since most of you have heard some version of the story, I thought you deserved the full truth." Matt's smile dropped. Chloe's hand clenched the tablecloth. "Lydia," she warned, but I ignored her. Matt and Chloe asked me not to attend their wedding because my wrinkles would ruin the aesthetic. Then they used my credit card to fund their honeymoon and lied about it. I canceled the trip, took it myself, and when they found out, they didn't apologize. They tried to guilt me. Then Chloe's coworker sent me this. I pulled out the speaker, hit play, and let the brunch clip ring out across the table. Laughter, bragging, her exact voice, her exact words. Ghost her after the trip. Modern boundaries. A few people gasped. One cousin actually dropped her fork. Chloe stood up, shaking. "You have no right. This is private. This is illegal." I looked at her coolly. "It's already been submitted as evidence. We're past private now." Then I dropped the folder on the table, opened to the first page. Here's the bank report showing Matt tried to hide refunded money using a fake account. Here's the prenup clause they triggered. Here's a signed affidavit from their wedding planner confirming they forged my name on several vendor forms. And here, I flipped to the last page, is the formal notice of criminal fraud being filed Monday morning unless every cent is repaid. The room had gone dead quiet. No one looked at Matt. No one touched Chloe. It was like a vacuum had sucked all the air out. Finally, Matt stood, pale and shaky. "Mom," he said, "can we talk outside?" I stared at him. "We had our talk. You chose lies." Chloe reached for her purse and stormed out. Matt followed. Some people tried to follow too, but Janine grabbed their arms. "Let them go," she said. "Let them feel it." I left 5 minutes later, not because I was angry, but because there was nothing else left to say. The next morning, Chloe's mom Marla called me in hysterics, saying I was ruining a young couple's future and that I needed to drop everything for the sake of the unborn baby. That's when I learned Chloe was pregnant, but not from her, from a text Matt sent me. Just 3 words. "We're having twins." I stared at the message for a long time. No apology. No ownership, just a manipulation play. I didn't reply. 2 days later, a sheriff's deputy knocked on their door and delivered the legal complaint. I heard they were blindsided. I heard Matt cried. I heard Chloe smashed her phone. And then I heard something else. Chloe had emptied her personal bank account and left Matt holding the bag. She told her friends it was his mess to clean up. He tried calling. I didn't pick up. Then he showed up, alone, bags under his eyes, hair a mess. He stood on my porch for 10 full minutes before I finally opened the door. "Mom," he said, "I messed up. I was stupid. But I didn't know about the fake account. Chloe did that." I looked at him, at the son I raised, the man he'd become, and for the first time in months, I believed him. Not because he was innocent, but because he was finally, actually ashamed. "I lost her," he said, voice cracking. "I lost everything. Can't we just reset?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said, "You lost me the day you watched her." Exclude me and said nothing. He stepped back like I'd slapped him. Then I added, "And you're not going to lose everything because I'm about to drop the lawsuit." His eyes lit up, confused. "Why?" "Because I've already won," I said. "Everyone saw who you really are. Everyone saw what Chloe really was. You'll live with that longer than court records ever could." And then before he could respond, I shut the door. But I didn't go back to my quiet little retirement. I had one more move left, because 2 days later, my lawyer called again. "Lydia," he said, "you were right to hold on to that vendor contract. There's a clause in it that gives you rights to the media usage from the event. Photos, video, the works. Want to see what we can do with that?" I grinned, because if they thought the internet meltdown was bad before, they had no idea what was coming next. The day the final blow landed was quiet, almost anticlimactic, and that made it even better. I didn't scream, didn't post, didn't call a single person. I just sat in my lawyer's office with a cup of herbal tea while he handed me the settlement. Agreement Matt finally signed. $12,000 in full reimbursement, $5,000 in additional damages, and a notarized statement relinquishing any claim to gifted wedding assets or future financial support. Chloe had ghosted him entirely by then, packed her bags, moved in with a friend in Florida, and was now trying to restart her influencer career under a new name. According to Ava, she was 5 months pregnant, alone, and still claiming it was a miracle twin pregnancy, although no one could confirm if Matt was the father or if she even knew. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that Matt had folded, completely. He tried to add one last clause, reconciliation contingent on financial forgiveness, but I refused. I wasn't bitter. I was done. I signed my half of the buy agreement, shook my lawyer's hand, and walked out into the sunshine, feeling 20 years younger. The money hit my account 3 days later. I stared at the numbers, not with greed or relief, but quiet satisfaction. Not because I needed it. I had retirement savings, a paid-off house, and no debts. But because it was proof. Proof that I hadn't imagined it all, that I wasn't overreacting, that I wasn't the selfish one, that dignity can't be bought, but it can be defended. I used a portion of the money to book a new trip, this time to Mérida, on the other side of Mexico. Not to escape, but to celebrate. A solo week of culture, food, and peace. But before I left, I had one more thing to do. Remember that clause my lawyer found in the vendor contract? The one that gave me joint media usage rights? Turns out, since I was a co-funder and co-signer, and since Matt and Chloe violated terms of the agreement by excluding immediate family without consent, I could legally use the professional wedding content, photo and video, for personal, promotional, or editorial purposes. So I called the photographer, who was more than happy to cooperate now that he'd been dragged through refund hell. We went through the footage together, and there it was. The wedding video, untouched, raw files and all. The forced smiles, the awkward vows, the moment Chloe rolled her eyes when Matt tried to kiss her forehead. We clipped a few scenes, added zero commentary, and posted it online with a simple caption, "Behind the curtain of a perfect wedding." It didn't need a backstory. People connected the dots instantly. It was subtle, legal, and devastating. By the end of the week, the video had over 2 million views. People praised the restraint, the class, the quiet power of truth laid bare. Matt deleted every social account he had. Chloe tried to report the post, but had no grounds. It wasn't slander. It was their own wedding footage, posted by a co-owner of the rights. The best revenge, it turned out, wasn't loud or vengeful. It was lawful, undeniable, and publicly graceful. I boarded my flight to Mérida with a clear heart. No guilt, no loose ends, no unfinished business. I left the house keys with Janine and told her to ignore anyone who came knocking. On the second day of my trip, I visited a market and bought a blue and white hand-woven hammock. On the third, I danced in the square with a group of women who were all over 60, all retired and all radiant. And on the last day, I booked a small casita, a 2-bedroom rental near the plaza, with a 6-month lease starting in the fall. I hadn't planned to move, but as I stood in that sunlit courtyard, sipping strong coffee and listening to street musicians laugh in Spanish, I realized something. I was free. Not just from Matt and Chloe, but from the old version of myself who thought motherhood meant martyrdom, who thought love required sacrifice without limits, who thought age made you invisible. No, I was still here. I had stories to tell, meals to enjoy, friendships to deepen, and years ahead of me, not defined by anyone else's cruelty or convenience. When I got home, Matt tried once more. He emailed, said he was getting help, said he wanted to rebuild, said he'd learned. I didn't reply. Because forgiveness isn't a door you open for someone else's comfort. It's a room you walk into when you're ready to live without bitterness. And I was already there. I had my hammock, my travel photos, my casita lease, and my peace. My final post before I boarded my return flight was a selfie on the balcony, hair messy, face makeup-free, eyes smiling. The caption said, "Wrinkles. Don't ruin anything. But entitlement ruins everything. I'm not coming back." And I never did. And I'm very happy now, living my new life. That's it for today. What would you have done in her place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love reading what you all think. And hey, if this story hit you, check out these videos too. You won't want to miss them.